Fender has recently made waves in the guitar manufacturing world, and it has been met with a lot of resistance from musicians and guitar manufacturers alike. Fender's recent court case in Germany has recognised that the iconic Stratocaster design should have copyright protection. While this may have originally been an attempt at pushing cheap Chinese replicas out of the market, it's had huge ramifications for guitar manufacturers and vendors across the EU. It's also been widely criticised by musicians as being an aggressive anti-consumer move by the giant Fender. All of this poses the question, has Fender's image been permanently damaged by finally choosing to enforce the copyright of a 70-year-old body design? But first, we need to look at the reasons why Fender has won the court case in Dusseldorf, Germany. Recently, there's been a landmark ruling that has changed the way that judges were to interpret copyright law in relation to industrial products. This ruling from the European Court of Justice has opened the door to these products being eligible for copyright protections as a piece of applied functional art. Previously, they weren't given this same treatment, and we will cover it more in depth next week. Fender has quickly capitalized on this change in thinking and have gone after a Chinese manufacturer, Yiwu Philharmonic Musical Instruments Company, who manufactures an S-style guitar. There are many other guitar manufacturers such as PRS, Ottoman's, Harley Benton, which also produce an S-style guitar. Just a quick point, because Stratocaster is a protected trademark, many manufacturers use S-style as a way to denote the double cutaway body shape without actually infringing on the copyright. Ultimately, Fender has won this case, uncontested, and won that the Stratocaster shape should be covered by copyright. I will cover the court case in more detail next week, but for now, it's just important to know why they were given this protection after it being deemed to have lost its trademark in a court case ruling in 2009 in the USA. Fender's concern isn't completely unfounded, right? Nor is it likely just corporate greed driving this decision. In recent years, there's been a huge rise in cheap clones of Fender and Gibson guitars, mostly made by low-cost manufacturers in China. This has all been made possible through the rise of distribution networks such as AliExpress, the storefront that brought the Yiwu Philharmonic Musical Instruments Company case to Fender's attention. Fender needed a way to protect its interests, and the European Court of Justice kind of just handed this to them with the change in how they're going to apply copyright going forward. The court case has sent shockwaves through the guitar manufacturing world, but every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Fender's assertions over the Stratocaster design has been met with a lot of backlash throughout the musical world. Fender, once the pioneer of electrical instruments, hurt its own image by trying to change 70 years of investment into a specific shape of guitar body by countless large-scale and boutique manufacturers alike. Many guitar players, myself included, feel like this is a hostile anti-consumer measure by Fender. And let's face it, in the music industry, image is everything. Fender may have established legendary status with endorsements from Buddy Holly, Jimi Hendrix, and countless others over the year. It's fair to say that Fender has become much a lifestyle brand as a manufacturer. And yet, they may have just thrown it all away. Could it be that this titan of music has just thrown it all away overnight? While Fender has become the pinnacle of guitars in genres spanning from rock and roll to country, it may have just signed its own death warrant in genres that have a DIY attitude. Could we see a world where Fender is shunned in music scenes that value rebellion, individuality, and independence? Well, quite possibly. This is the type of anti-consumer behaviour that is likely to damage Fender's reputation, especially in punk rock and metal circles. The reality is that Fender, along with its subsidiaries, owns nearly half of the market share of guitars sold. and is now attempting to bully smaller manufacturers into submission. This is certainly guaranteed to cause some pushback in these groups, but could we see the brand itself ostracized from these genres? Quite possibly, but I would hope not. Fender has been an icon since the Broadcaster in 1950, which then became the Telecaster in 1951. However, its reliance on maintaining its vintage image might be one of the major parts of the problem here. The company hasn't had a major change in its lineup since Leo Fender sold it to CBS back in 1965. That was until the introduction of the Meteora range in 2022. There is an irony that Fender's biggest innovation in my lifetime looks like a rip-off of Gibson's Thunderbird and is named after a Linkin Park album. It also goes to show how much Fender has coasted on its legacy left by its founder. In all honesty, it isn't hard to see why some young guitarists are calling Fender a boomer brand. They have been coasting on designs left to them by its legendary founder Leo Fender. With the rising popularity of other brands such as Ibanez and Schecter, it is obvious that Fender's saving grace is its subsidiary Jackson, that still allows it to compete in the high-gain world of heavy metal. Let's move on to the way it's been received by other manufacturers. The largest names yet to be hit by Fender is none other than PRS. Fender served them a cease and desist over their Silver Sky guitar, and Yamaha. This follows Harley Benton's cease and desist letter being issued by Fender, alongside numerous small-scale boutiques. Fender's desperate to maintain its sole right over the S-style guitar, and it has begun to try and enforce this new ruling to other firms. What they didn't rely on is for people to fight back. Tommen, who owns Harley Benton, has already pledged to dispute the original ruling that went in favour of Fender. Given that this is the first time there will be a defence going against Fender, it's likely that this case will take a new form and it will be more important than the original ruling. But let's not get dragged into that debate until next week when we look more in detail about the case. What is worth mentioning here is the lack of trust we're likely to see from vendors who have a vested interest in seeing Fender lose on this appeal. In this section, we're going to take a quick look at Tommen, who could potentially have a falling out with Fender here. They own the Harley Benton brand. Many of the guitars Harley Benton produces could be in violation of this copyright finding, because it is not just the Stratocaster shape. This same ruling might be able to apply to the Telecaster, the Jazz, and let's face it, Harley Benton's got plenty of guitars, as well as other manufacturers that fall into this category. So as well as them selling a lot of S-style bodies that they produce themselves, they're also unlikely to be able to sell a large chunk of their inventory or have to redesign the products that they make. And this is going to strain their relationship between Fender and the online store that Tommen run. This relationship exists between many other big stores as well, who may be holding S-style bodies and not being able to sell them. So could we see a boycott of Fender products on these platforms? Well, it's going to strain the relationship, but probably not. Fender has a very loyal fan base who are unlikely to shift their preferences. What is more likely to happen is many firms will join together and tie Fender's money up in years of litigation as the case goes through court. Especially if they were to lose the copyright case, it's going to hurt investor confidence, and that is probably where Fender's going to feel the money more than anything. Ultimately, it is going to be one of the largest gambles in Fender's history. The company may have succeeded in strengthening its copyright protection over its iconic design, probably the most recognizable guitar in history. Commercially, however, it could cost them far higher than the courtroom victory. The Stratocaster, in its 70-year run, has become more than an instrument. It has become the first image that comes to mind when you think of guitar. Seriously, search the guitar emoji and the first thing that pops up is an S-style guitar. That is without mentioning its countless appearances in movies, album covers, and even kids' drawings. Pair this with the fact that so many luthiers have followed suit and produced their own S-style bodies, you can see why there's so much animosity towards Fender's decision in enforcing this copyright. Regardless of whether the copyright claim is upheld, the court of public opinion might be what seals Fender's fate. This could be the end of Fender having any foothold in punk or metal circles. Every cease and desist, every lawsuit, and every distribution network damaged risks reinforcing the perception that Fender has become more interested in protecting its past than inspiring the future. The greatest irony of this case is that Leo Fender was one of the greatest innovators of his time, and yet the company carrying his name will not be remembered as an innovator, but the brand standing against it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This was the first ever video under Painted in Punk, and drop a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again next week.